canonized. And the ones that were canonized were the ones that were universally accepted by all Christian authority, by all Christian leaders throughout the ages, that yes, these are consistent to the doctrines of Christianity.
Yeah. If I remember my Bible very well, I think it's 2 Timothy 3:16, I think, that talks about that the scripture is divinely inspired and is good for all doctrines, for teachings, for correction, for reproof, and all those things. And then I can't remember which verse of the Bible that said this book, that whosoever added or subtracted unto it, to him a certain punishment that comes with it. But what you just said now, it's really, we have these 300 bishops who came in to compile the book that brought this Bible, but the subtraction that happened in the Bible was recently. It was around 1684, before the Bible was translated into English, that they removed 14 books inside.
No, that's talking about something else. That is totally different. That is not the Council of Nicaea, that one.
No. What I'm giving is that we had a Council of Nicaea, which the Bible was initially compiled, and not until 1684 before 14 books were removed, because they were considered non-canonized books. And I have the list of the books that were here before the Bible was translated into English. Recently, 1684, the book of Ezra, Ezra 1, Ezra 2, the book of Tobit, the book of Judith, the rest of Esther, the wisdom of Solomon, Ecclesiasticus, Baruch, and the epistle of Jeremiah, and then the songs of the three holy children. The songs of the three holy children, the history of Susanna, Bel and the dragon, the prayer of Manasseh, the Maccabees, the book of Maccabees. This was recently. If not this, the 300 bishops that were called to compile these books did a good job, but not until recently these books were subtracted. So how can you explain such phenomenon?
Oh yes, I can explain it easy, because this subtraction you are talking about and the 16 books that were removed. 14 books that were removed from the Bible that you are talking about, that was done by the Protestants. This was done by after the Reformation, after the Protestant Reformation took place. Now, what happened was that before the Protestant Reformation, the Catholic Church were the dominant force in Europe. And the Catholic Church were almost having a position of, nobody could question the authority of the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church basically did anything they wanted to do. So after the Council of Nicaea, which included heads of churches from every land where Christianity has spread, including Algeria, Morocco. Those were Christian nations that time. Algeria, Morocco, Egypt, Ethiopia, Syria, Lebanon, all these were Christians. And bishops came from all over these places. And from Europe, from everywhere. So they all came together and agreed, including and agreed on these original books. But later on, what happened was that about 200 years later, Islam began to spread. And Islam wiped out all these nations that were formerly Christian nations. So when people talk about crusades, they always blame the Christians for crusades. And they always blame the Christians that the Christians brought violence and destruction to Islamic world. But they will not tell you that the Christians waited for 400 years or more before they started the crusade. And what were they trying to do? They were trying to stop and reverse the devastation that Islam has brought upon the Christian church. Because, like, for example, all this was Christian territories. All of North America was a Christian territory. All of Asia, where you now see Syria, Lebanon, all those places, they were all Christian territories. And even Turkey and all those places were Christian. But after the death of Muhammad, you know, one of his his lieutenants and, you know, his assistant, they started this. They continued the war that was started by Muhammad, and conquered and overran all these, you know, Christian nations, and not just nations but regions. As a result, the churches in the 2 continents were almost wiped out. They became almost non-existent because the Muslims gave the condition in most of the lands that they conquered that either you are going to convert to Islam or you are going to become like basically second-class citizens. So maybe the first generation tried to, you know, survive anyhow. But can you imagine when they have conquered your land for 300 years? Not many people even remember what Christianity was. So church basically was destroyed in most, and those were the leading countries. Right now, when you look at Christianity, you are thinking that the leading Christian countries of the world, or continent, or countries of the world are European countries. You call them Christian countries. But in those days, the leading Christian nations were not European nations. The leading Christian nations was Egypt. The leading Christian nation was Morocco. The leading Christian nation was Syria. The leading Christian nation was Lebanon. The leading Christian nation was Algeria. These were the leading Christian nations. So it's just like saying now, no, something horrible happened, all of Europe is wiped out. So after all that, all those Christian nations were wiped out, that is what led to the, part of the reasons that led to the, because they also almost overran Turkey too. And later on they overran Turkey. And by this time, and Turkey was the capital of Christianity. You know, it was, you know, after Rome.
Called Constantinople.
Constantinople, yes. So it was the capital of Christianity, but it also fell. So a lot of devastation. So what now happened was, because the center of Christianity has been destroyed and become so weak, the only last fought Christian stronghold, the only Christian center that was left in the world was just Europe, Rome and Europe. So they were not the senior before. Now they are the only ones left, and no peer control, no peer submission anymore, because the other ones had now been so weakened that Rome could basically do anything they wanted. So absolute power corrupts absolutely. So because of the absolute power of Rome, what happened was that a lot of horrible things were happening. Rome will single-handedly, when I talk about Rome, I'm talking about Pope. I'm talking about the Catholic Church. Because apart from the Catholic Church, we had the Orthodox Church. Apart from the Orthodox Church, we had the Syrian Church. Then we had the Egyptian Church. It's called, what do they call it? Coptic Church. Then we had the Ethiopian Church. So they have different churches that were the main real church of the Lord Jesus Christ at that time. But now it was only the Catholic Church left. So the Catholic Church now declares itself Catholic and a universal church, absolute power. And absolute. So because they declared themselves absolute power and nobody was controlling what was happening to these popes, in fact, the popes declared themselves almost the representative, second to God.
Vicarious Fidel.
Yes, the representative of God on the earth. So, and because you are the representative of the God on the earth, you can do and undo. They began to fight for that position. Some of them will impregnate women, the nuns. Some of them will go to war and with the kings and the emperors, the little European kings, be taking money from them. The corruption was much. So it was in that process of confusion that they went and added just one of the popes. You know what I mean? Some of the popes were doing some crazy stuff. I mean, some of them were having wives right there. They couldn't have the right to do it. But some of them were having many of them. Children were being born. All kinds of things were being done. I mean, so one of them just added, you know, I don't know what is the history, but I think somebody proposed to him some of these books as interesting books, and they went and added those 14 books to the original 66 that were agreed in the Lycia Council. But nobody could question them. They were basically the only people left for the next, like, how many years? 500 years or so? Or 400 years, this was happening. Nobody could question. It's regarded actually as dark ages in Europe and in the history of the church. Nobody could question the Catholic Church. The Christian church was almost destroyed because of this absolutism of power of the Catholic Church. So, and that is the period where they decided to go and fight and, you know, go back to, you know, do the Crusades and all kind of things. So, anyway, but when the Protestants, that's what you are now talking about, 500 years ago, took place, the Protestants knew, they know the story, that no, this is, and that's why, what is the Protestant? The Protestants were protesting against all those wrong things that were now reigning in the Catholic Church. And since it was the Catholics, because a Catholic means almost like universal, like they were the only church. Nobody could question them before that Protestant something. They were like the church. So, but these people, God raised them up, led by Martin Luther of Germany, the reformer, and they made a list of 99 theses. Okay, you know about those 99 theses of the things that are, or you know, the things that are wrong in the church. So they made a list, and one of those things is that this thing is not these books, additions to the Word of God, to the original, something that has been agreed by all the churches that are no, yeah, those churches are weak now. They couldn't question. Nobody can question the Catholic Church. But these people say, no, let's return back to the originality of the Word of God. Let's return back to the way everything is supposed to be. So that is now what the Catholics did, what the Protestants did. Now, why you are now saying it was removed only 500 years ago, why was that done, is because the Bibles that we now use are mostly published by the by the Protestants. So in these Protestant books, you don't find those 14 books anymore. But if you look for real core Catholics, you will find out that they still have that old Bible with those books that you just mentioned now.
Yes, yes.
But it is no more universally accepted. Because even though when the Protestant Reformation was happening, the Catholic Church and you know, they fought them, they wanted to destroy them, kill them, but they disagreed. But 400 years later, about 100 years ago, the Catholic Church itself came to accept most of the list and the thesis that the Protestants protested against. So the Catholic Church also had a council of where they were, you know, where they, you know, were reviewing their history and their mistakes, and that was at the point when they accepted that, oh, okay, a lot of these things that Martin Luther protested about, they were actually right. So Catholics, that's why you will not see those Bibles being used generally even by the Catholics anymore, because the Catholic Church officially have agreed to a lot of the Reformation points that were raised up by the Protestants. So that's why you don't have those ones in the Bible anymore.
It's interesting to see that there's a book of the bell and the dragon.
You know,
when I saw those
that is even nothing compared to the things that were happening in the Catholic Church those days. That is even one of the least ones. A lot of horrible things were happening in the Catholic Church. But, you know, now the Catholic Church is much more sober. They are no more as dominant as they used to be. And they are not, they are much more, in fact, right now, the way I see things is that the African church are now the ones repeating all the mistakes of the Catholic Church of old. The original Catholic Church, as far as I'm concerned, is even better than those charismatic African churches right now. I think the African churches, they don't learn from history. All those charismatic churches, they are not learning from the history of the church and from the problems that the church had, you know, due to the excesses of the Catholic Church. And those excesses now are now being repeated in Africa by all these our GOs, by, you know, the same thing. You know, they are just repeating everything that the people have done. And they are not learning from history. And that's because people are not studying history, and they are not studying theology, and they are not studying history. And because they don't, when you don't know history, you are going to repeat that history.
One of the books that I found really interesting is the book of Enoch. It's all about prediction. It's like a prophecy. It's a prophecy or something that happened, an event that happened, which the present day, the description of heaven, his vision where he was into trance and how he was taken into some celestial place, and he gave full detail of the description of these places. What is really interesting today is that the NASA, the company in charge of the airspace program that we have today, they took the description of this Enoch, the description of heaven that he gave, they built exactly. If you go to NASA today, it's almost exactly the description he gave, the height, the length of the building, the shape, and everything that it did inside. So they tried to reconstruct the heaven he gave. So most of them explain it. Most of them, the NASA, the people that are working NASA most, that came up, they were like, it wasn't some kind of God or the Christian God. They actually believed that it was an alien visit on the human, because most of the description they gave, and he say a chariot of fire. He said so because then humans, they don't know any better. They think when you see a chariot, they don't know what else to describe it. They just call it a chariot of fire. So they believe that it was a rocket that came down to humans. So that also is leading us to the next question that I would like you to address about that, of the recent research that came out recently. That was last year, December, on the 18th. It was on CNN, of a research that had taken on for a very long time. The American Secret Service, they are very discreet about releasing this information to the people. So they decided to release it last year, 18 December 17, yeah, because that was when the news was going on. It went viral to the people that were interested in it. They released a result of the publication of some of the findings they did, because this thing started long ago. I think since 1940, when they were trying to look for the name of the object that they saw, a debris of a flight that fell, and they couldn't identify some of the components of this aircraft. They couldn't tell. So they got some of this object, and then there is an area currently that is said that it doesn't exist in the map. We can't find it through GPS or whatever. It's called Area 51. So there's a secret location where most of the great American aircraft, fighter jets that we are being produced were produced there, were fabricated there. It's a place, is an underground place somewhere. It's just inaccessible for any human around. It's a very secret place, well reserved for some of this research, because they found some precious materials there that they were using. So let me just read what I wrote. Say they did it so that some of these things that they found, they said they didn't give any full details of the classified document, were debris and the replication of the aircraft, which has distinctive characteristics. So some of these debris, some of the things that they have, they try to replicate some of these aircraft, and these are some of the things they find out. They say that the thing has no obvious flight surface, no obvious form for propulsion, and with an extreme maneuverability and hypersonic velocity, say positive lift, defying the laws of aerodynamics. They found out that this aircraft, this so-called aircraft that landed, cannot, some of the components are not found on Earth. You don't know how you can produce them, and the maneuver it can easily turn in a certain way. It was initially described as a disc. So do you think, in your own opinion, it's safe, therefore, to conclude the possibility of the existence of extraterrestrial life? Do you think that's very much likely? There's some kind of deity, some other planet apart from we humans? Do you think that's very possible?
Is it called Area 51 or Area 57?
Area 51.
51, yeah.
We call it.
Well, what I would say is that there are a lot of secrets still unreleased by NASA, or by different government. You know, the American government has some information. Russians have a lot of information, and many different governments of the world, somewhere in New Zealand or Australia, they also have some information. They have these things. These things are classified. There was a politician in Canada who was, I think he used to be the Secretary of Defense in Canada in the 50s or 60s, that also started campaigning for this, that the governments of the world and this government of America will release more information to the public, that there is a phenomenon there. So I know that phenomena could be caused by different things. And that is another proof to us that we are limited. We don't know everything. And that to me supports my own argument against the atheist argument. Because atheists and agnostics are just people who discover things as they appear. So, for example, they are saying there is no God now, but we don't know what they will discover tomorrow, day after tomorrow, in 100, 1,000 years. That will just say, you know what? It's true. We didn't know that we didn't have this information. And because we didn't have this information, so we couldn't confirm that there was God. We only said there was no God due to the information we had that time. But now we now know better. So that is why I would not put my faith in what atheists say. And that's why I said it the last time that I don't follow the African, religion, Christianity that you see right now. That's not Christianity. You will be missing the road. Then don't follow all the Africans or other, African-centric or people who are saying all kind of things about Christianity or saying Christianity is not. People don't know. They will be discovering things more, and we are discovering more. The more we grow now, the more we are discovering more. People will still discover. That's why I can never be an atheist, because it's too risky. So because they will discover it 1,000 years later when I'm no more here, and I've made my own decision. I've made mistake to follow their confusion and their ignorance because they were not aware. So I will not do that. I would rather, pitch my tent with what I know as being true from ages. So I will not be in a hurry to reach a conclusion that there is another civilization apart from human civilization. We don't have enough information to decide yet. But if you as an African also come out, I will also tell you that there are other phenomena that happen in Africa that we need to prove, and we need to do experiments to see if they are true or not. For example, if an African or somebody will come right now to the West, to Europe or to America and say they have seen a bird that became a human, or that they have seen a human that became a bird. Now, I cannot verify this information as well, but there are a lot of myths and a lot of stories in Africa that border around these kind of things. In fact, sometimes you might even be able to find some remains or some goats or some bird that say, oh, it was a human being. Oh, this one. But those things cannot also be verified yet. Or, people will say that wishes fly, or that they become a human being. I would not say I believe those things until they could be verified and proven. The same kind of, so those are abnormal realities and abnormal things that have happened, that happen in life that we might not be able to explain. I would put the UFO question in that same category until we could have more information.
Okay. So I would like you to comment on the event that happened on the 30th of July, 1908 in Siberia. They call it the Tunguska event. It was a huge phenomenon, an explosion that happened in a large forest. So they still carrying on research, which I think is almost close to 100 years now. 1908 should be up to. So that there was a huge explosion, and they couldn't find any debris of any explosive materials, any atoms. So the analysis, the collection, the specimen they collected from the ground, there was nothing to analyze. There was nothing at all, no any, I don't know, uranium or some kind of substance to prove that there was an explosion. But it happens, and it left a huge vacuum of a hole on the ground, and the trees were scattered and were destroyed, which the government took record, and even the American government are still carrying research. They still couldn't explain such phenomenon. What can you comment about that?
But is that not the phenomenon that was recorded where they said they had some cries and screams coming from the ground, like from hell?
I'm not quite sure about that. This they couldn't explain at all from the specimen they collected, and they couldn't tell anything at all.
Well, yeah, I would not be able to comment on that as well. I will also see that as part of the abnormal or what they call it, paranormal. Yeah, paranormal occurrences that we either we don't know enough to judge, or that is we don't have enough information, or we don't have, our technology is not enough to be able to find out. I would rather leave that to science and technology right now. Meanwhile, let me make an announcement. Some people might have noticed that I sent out invitations, Facebook invitations, and people might be wondering, oh, somebody is trying to clone, my page. No, I am the one sending out new, fresh Facebook invitations to my people, to people who are active on my Facebook page, on my public page. What happened is that once in 6 months or once in 3 months, I try to review my Facebook friends. So when I see people who are no more active or who have not been active on my page for the past 1 year or 6 months, I remove them and I invite, because there are so many people right now. Can you imagine? There are 40,000 people who are waiting for me to add them as friends. So can you imagine 40,000 people waiting for me to add them as friends, whereas I can only have place for 5,000. And out of that 5,000 that I have, I discovered that 70% of them are old friends. Old friends that don't agree with what I now teach. Old friends that don't agree that I criticize their pastors or bishops. Old friends that, that have cut relationship with me. Old friends that would not come on my page to watch my program. So I want to remove all of them. 70% of them are old friends. So I would rather remove all these old friends and invite the ones that I'm seeing now that are on the line and waiting, they come to see me, but they are not my friends. But my information is going to the wrong ones. I would rather like my information to go to the ones who are following me now. I would rather want my information to go to the people who are my disciples now, but they are not even my friends. So that's why I want to remove all the old friends, the people, who don't come to listen to me, who don't believe in me anymore, in my teachings. And so that's what I'm doing. So if you or your friends get invitations and you've not been my friends on personal, I'm talking about personal page, then you know that it is coming from me. The public page is just liking. There's no friendship there. But the personal page, that is the invitation that are being sent out are coming from me.
Many people might think is somebody is trying to scam them when they receive friend requests coming from you.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think about this 666? What do you think about the concept of 666?
Even Christians have some